Alright, this is going to be a quick rundown of what I got done with the animation stuff and sort of the player control animation and where it stands, sort of the evolution of where I started. So initially in phase 1 I got kind of the sword arm being able to swing around with the mouse. So if I click and drag, it moves the mouse around, moves the sword around. If we go to third person mode, you can see that it's animated and it'll actually stick around, and you can move it around in all kinds of different ways, even up and over the shoulder a little bit. In this mode it was a little unnerving to use. Well, first of all, like, collisions need to be dealt with because we can actually lift ourselves up on the, if we bump into things, yes, see, if we bump into things we fall off like that. It interacts with the environment in really weird ways. The other thing is when we're in first person mode, it's kind of like difficult. It looks like I might be able to hit that, but I'm just slightly too far away. I have to be like right up on it in order to hit it. So if we had like creatures walking around and we were trying to hit them, it becomes really difficult. So if we try to come and hit these guys, it's difficult to tell when we hit them. Our view is locked while we're swinging the sword around. Ignore the clipping of the arm, but even just trying to hit these guys, it's tough to see if you're hitting them. Okay, so I just kind of hit him there, and so this was very frustrating. It's kind of cool that you can swing your sword around and make figure eights and things, but a little impractical in this implementation. So I thought, well, maybe when we're swinging we need to kind of move the view around a little bit to give us that. Also the field of view, which here is set to 60 degrees vertically. Old Mythruna had it set to 70, so maybe we can change the field of view when we're whacking things so that it looks like they're a little farther away, so that we know to get closer. So for phase 2, what I initially tried doing was just changing the field of view. Now instead of 60 we default to 70, and when we click the sword we kind of back up a little bit to give us a little, okay, so see, I'm still too far away and I can move closer and I know I need to click that. But it was still annoying to actually hit things. Like if I come down here and I try to like click on, it's tough to, okay, so I can like run up to them and I can hit them, but it's just tough to see when you hit something, and you have to be like right up on them, and that's probably not going to change, but it's just really annoying to like, okay, now I want to go over here, and you move around and it's not working. So I thought, okay, so now let's take the next idea, which is maybe we'll move the camera around a little bit to follow the sword, so that maybe we can see beyond just these little edges of the screen here. Also, the field of view doesn't change when you're out here because you figured you're already far enough away. So now let's look at the next phase. Okay, so in this phase, when we drag the sword, it moves the camera a little bit to either side, more so up and down, though that's harder to say because there's less room to move. And because of this, it becomes a little clearer to know when we're whacking things. The other thing that I changed was when we actually hit something, it pauses the sword, or pauses the tool, so I can't drag any further down, which makes more sense when you're whacking walls and things. Like if you hit this, it stops you and you can't drag any more into it until you've dragged away. And that actually makes more sense with something like the axe, where you might want to chop it into something and have it stop when it hits. So it makes more sense for things like this, or when the axe is actually longer, so if we go to hit here, we hit and it stops. If we go back over here to our birds, if we hit them, we don't actually stay connected, and so we can just keep whacking them. But again, it's not great. And what I started to realize is we're locked in this point of view, and as we click and drag, we're still essentially facing the same way. If we were here, she doesn't change her position, and so as we move forward and back, no synced, no overlaid animations. And so as we move forward and back, even if we're twisted way over here, we're still moving in the same direction, and that's fine in a way. It's just confusing because we're a little twisted here, and so when we release, now we're facing here, and now we'll move this. But when we're dragging, if we're dragged way over here and we move forward and back, it's kind of moving sideways. and it makes navigation a little weird. So I think this is about as far as I'm going to go with this approach, and I think it's fun on some level, but it's very awkward. And I think that what we really need is just animation, like for a centered tool up and down, so that if we look up, we look down, you know, it'll move up and down. And then the left and right wouldn't be animated like this necessarily. It would just be, you know, it would just be her turning. So she'd have the axe out, and when you move these side to side, it would actually turn your character to face those different directions. Now, whether it actually does that with the model or not is, I mean, it still could use these animations, but the point is that when I'm looking in this direction, if I was to move forward, I would move forward in that direction. And initially it would be just simple animation. You'd, you know, look up, look down with the axe, and then, you know, swing left and right. And you can, you know, then swing, you know, different things. That'll also make it easier for me to implement the twisting of the axe, because right now, you know, if I'm swinging in this direction, it makes sense, but if I'm, you know, swinging up and down, it doesn't make sense. But if I had a simpler animation, which was just top and bottom, then it would be simpler to twist the wrist as part of that, you know, as part of the swing direction. So if we're swinging this way, we know we need to twist the wrist, you know, 45 degrees off center that way, and 45 degrees off center this way, and so on, so that the axe could actually follow the direction of the swing, you know, or the sword for that matter, because the sword looks a little lame too if you're chopping up. Sword only chops up and down, and so it looks a little lame swinging side to side. I think another thing that will help is when we hit something, if it, you know, creates an effect, you know, debris coming off and a sound effect or some sort, that would let us know. Like when we whack the tree, we'll have sort of a visceral thing. But anyway, it's been an interesting experiment. I'm happy with how it turned out. It's, you know, directly in line with my vision on what I wanted. It's just a little awkward. This is the kind of thing where, you know, if you had VR controllers, it would make a lot more sense. But when you're trying to click and use the mouse for moving this around and have that also be the direction you move, I think it's critical that, you know, if we're using the mouse direction to control where we're swinging, then we also need to use the mouse direction to control where we're moving. And right now it's like either or. So I'm going to play with those ideas. So anyway, this is about as far as I'm going to get with this one. It's workable for checking collisions with things and working out the physics of that and getting the effects aligned. I have some ideas on how to make that like network ready. There's the other thing about you know, fixing the collisions for stuff like that. That can all be done whether we change the animations or not, or how the animations changed is another thing. But I think it looks good. I think it's kind of cool. You know, animation layering, you know, if she could walk while she swung her sword, that would be nice too. That'll also be something that's easier to do if I just have a simpler animation for up and down, because it would only kind of affect her shoulder and upper torso, whereas the swinging, you can see it affects her whole hips and legs, which means it's much harder to merge with a run or walk animation. So simpler is better, but this is enough to test things, and it was certainly an educational experience as I went through the stuff and tried different options to try to make it work better. And each of them did improve it, but I'm running out of things to improve this particular approach, and so I'm going to abandon it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next live stream, or if I post another one of these videos.